Thank you for coming today. I'm Colonel John Bolduc with the Nebraska State Patrol. I'm thankful to report that the suspect involved in last night's officer-involved shooting in Omaha is in custody and that all individuals are safe. I'll get into the details that we can share at this time, but first I'd like to thank the public who helped share the information that we put out last night regarding the suspect. Thanks to hundreds of posts on social media and coverage from our media partners late last night, we were able to share the information about the suspect across the metro and beyond. The situation began last night at about 8:15 when troopers were following up on a previous investigation at a residence in the 6200 block of 30th Street South in Omaha. Troopers believe that a wanted subject identified as Jason Davenport was inside the residence. A female occupant of the residence, Dana Michelle Banks, confirmed that Davenport was inside. Davenport had an active arrest warrant from Potawatomi County, Iowa, and was being sought for questioning regarding fleeing a traffic stop last week. For some time, Davenport refused to exit the home. Additional troopers and Omaha PD officers arrived at the scene to assist. At about 8:56 p.m., Davenport exited the rear of the residence and fired at least 2 shots from a handgun toward troopers. He then jumped a fence and ran toward an unoccupied NSP cruiser. Several troopers and an OPD officer fired their service weapons as Davenport attempted to take the cruiser. He was unable to steal the cruiser because of security measures within the vehicle. Troopers and officers then saw that Davenport was attempting to access the rifle that was locked inside the cruiser. Because of an anti-theft system in place for NSP rifles, he was unable to access this weapon. At about this time, a gray Ford Fusion drove up to the cruiser. Banks exited the vehicle and approached Davenport. Davenport then held Banks in front of him as he went to get into the Ford Fusion. Banks then walked around the vehicle and voluntarily entered the passenger side of the car, at which time Davenport fled, driving through Upland Park. As the vehicle drove through the park, troopers and officers attempted to pursue but lost visual. A large search was conducted with the assistance of OPD and NSP helicopters. After about 2 hours, it was determined that the suspect was no longer in the area, and an officer safety message was sent out to law enforcement in both Iowa and Nebraska. As the investigation continued overnight, law enforcement developed information that Davenport may be traveling in a different vehicle in Washington County. At about 3 a.m., the Washington County Sheriff's Office located a Kia Soul that was believed to be stolen. The deputy attempted a traffic stop, but the driver fled and a pursuit ensued. This vehicle was occupied by both Davenport and Banks, who were involved in the first incident. After a short pursuit, both subjects exited the vehicle and fled on foot, eventually hiding inside a semi-cab in a large shop building near Kennard in Washington County. Officers from numerous law enforcement partners arrived at the scene, including both the NSP SWAT team. Commands were given repeatedly throughout the standoff for both subjects to exit the vehicle. Troopers saw that Davenport was still in possession of the firearm. He refused many commands to discard the weapon and displayed it toward officers, prompting troopers to fire. Immediately after shots were fired, Banks exited the vehicle and surrendered to troopers. She was taken into custody and transported to UNMC with a gunshot wound. Her injuries are not considered life-threatening. While Davenport still refused to exit the vehicle, additional resources came to the scene. The Potawatomi County Sheriff's Office bought a specific armored vehicle known as a Rook, which was used to gain access into the semi-cab just after 8 a.m. At this time, an NSP canine was deployed into the semi-cab. Davenport was then taken into custody. He was transported to UNMC also with non-life-threatening injuries. Charges are pending for both individuals in Douglas and Washington counties. The Nebraska State Patrol has asked the Omaha Police Department to investigate the first officer-involved shooting. The NSP Special Investigations Team will investigate the second officer-involved shooting. Thankfully, no officers were struck by gunfire during these incidents. All troopers who fired their weapons have been placed on leave in accordance with department policy. This is an ongoing investigation, and there are still a number of questions that the investigation will be able to answer, but at this time we believe that Banks was involved as a willing accomplice and was not a hostage. There are too many partners who helped in this case to thank them all, but a special thanks to the Omaha Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Office, and the Potawatomi County Sheriff's Office for their help during this chaotic situation. I'm thankful that the only injuries involved appear to be minor and that the public is safe at this time.